time for our paper review now. Here with me this morning to go through the papers are the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and the writer and journalist, Lesley Riddoch. So welcome back to both of you. Nice to see you back again. So, Lesley, we're kicking off this section with the front page of the Daily Mirror. And this is the next round of COVID jabs that some of us are due for. And they're calling it a booster jab crisis. So why is it a crisis?
Well, it seems that there's older folk are less keen to come forward, but actually when you really look into the statistics, it feels like the campaign hasn't really totally got going yet. It is the case already that people who are vulnerable, folk who are in the front line, people in care homes, these people can come forward for the booster jags, but there's a lot of issues sitting at the back of this. Some immunologists are trying to point out that having COVID doesn't give you very much immunity to the next variant. And there might be a belief amongst people that if you've actually had COVID by now, you're sort of doing all right. There's also a flu jag that's coming up. Perhaps older people are beginning to think one will sort of deal with the other, or that two jags at the same time is too much. Who knows? Because there isn't really a full-on campaign. If you want to get a COVID test and you haven't got any tests from the last time, it's actually 10 quid to buy a test. So it feels like we're cranking up towards something which could be really serious. I mean, some of the professionals are calling it potentially a twin-demic, because we haven't really had flu in a big way for the last couple of years because COVID kind of edged it out. So the potential to have something pretty bad this year, if we don't have COVID and flu jags, seems to be quite large. And at the moment, it's the over 70s who seem to be the ones who are most at risk of contracting COVID, whereas the previous strains were very much more spreading amongst young people.
And sorry, just one quick question, which I don't know if you know the answer to, Lesley, but is this something that people will be invited to do, like we have been previously? You'll get a text or something saying you can now book your booster, or do people go to their GPs and say, can I have one? Do you know how it's working?
Well, I have been drilling down to try and see that, and of course it's different in England and Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, but it would seem at the moment that those over 65s are being invited and have been since September in a rolling programme to come forward. But what the NHS in England is saying now is that over 50 should be included in that. I should imagine that would mean that the text and those sorts of methods of contact will begin to resume.
Yeah, interesting, but I haven't had one. You'll be amazed to hear that I'm over 50. I know that's staggering news, but anyway, I will let you know if it comes through. Let's move on to the Times, shall we, Dawn? Their main headline, parents get cash payout in childcare reform plan. So what is the thinking behind this plan of Liz Truss's?
Yeah, it's drawing up plans to overhaul the convoluted and very confusing subsidised childcare system in the UK at the moment. At present, parents of all 3 and 4-year-olds in England can claim 15 hours of free childcare a week, which amounts to around £2,000 per child per year. Now, this currently is paid to the nursery care provider rather than the parents. What Liz Truss has suggested in these new plans, which are being drawn up, it's not definitely going to happen, it is a plan, is that money is paid directly to the parents to decide how they spend it, which in theory means that they could use the money to pay grandparents who are looking after their grandchildren, for example, rather than the nursery care. And this is obviously, in the light of nursery care prices, absolutely being extortionate now. But I think one of the most important things about this story is that Liz Truss would win a lot of brownie points if she really helped working women in this country sort out childcare arrangement. I know men look after kids as well, but it's mainly women. Look after children and manage to get back in the workforce. We have a labour shortage at the moment, and I think women are crying out for this kind of help.
Yeah, and really interesting. It seems to feed in very much that Liz Truss ideology of putting people's money in their pockets and then letting them make their own decisions. But I'm sure there are plenty of arguments around that. Let's move on to, which unfortunately I haven't got time to go into now, but because Lesley, I want to bring you in on the SNP conference kicks off today. There's also a ruling next week on whether or not an independence referendum can go ahead next year, isn't there? And what is the I saying about some of the issues that throws up?
Well, yes, I'm speaking actually from a hotel room in Aberdeen, about to go to the SNP conference. The I story is the news from Nicola Sturgeon that she will be publishing a paper next week outlining the ideas of a Scottish pound. The old policy last time round in 2014 from Alex Salmond was that there would be a shared currency. George Osborne said that won't happen. You could actually have a shared currency, but that didn't sound like a very good, strong arrangement. So in between, there's been a growth commission in Scotland that suggested a slow move away from sterling to a Scottish currency. A lot of strict tests were suggested for that. Could take a very long time. And of course, in the interim, the tanking of the pound has rather accentuated the point that leaving monetary decisions with the Westminster Bank of England combination would be a pretty dodgy thing for a new country. Now, of course, any new currency also has to get established. It would have a central bank that would be established straight after independence vote, and that's all in the paper that will come up next week. But as you say, the thing that will concentrate my minds at the moment is that the Supreme Court is meeting next week to decide whether or not the world's most powerfully devolved parliament, as we're told Scotland has, can actually hold a legal referendum
We're out of
on
time.
independence.
We're out of time. I'll see you both next hour.